This is an ABC News special report. Trump and Kim, the historic summit. Now reporting from Singapore, George Stephanopoulos.
Good evening and welcome to a moment of history. We are live from Singapore, where President Trump is about to become the first American president to meet with a dictator of North Korea. It is a moment rich with opportunity and risk. Success here could reduce the risk of nuclear war, usher in a new era of peace. Failure could force military action, a catastrophic conflict with U.S. troops right on the front lines. That is where President Trump will greet Kim Jung Un. It's a meeting months in the making. Hard to believe that just months ago, both leaders were threatening each other with nuclear obliteration. They're expected to walk out there. It's on Sentosa Island here in Singapore, the Capella Hotel, greet each other before the cameras, then go behind closed doors for about 45 minutes alone, only translators. And then they will be joined by the broader delegation, supposed to last most of the day, but both President Trump and Kim expected to leave Singapore before the end of the day right now. Jonathan Karl is with our White House delegation. And John, President Trump says he'll know in the first minute whether he can work with Kim.
And he also says he has been preparing, George, his whole life for this moment. But this has been a process, this whole process has been driven by the president, by a president acting on his own instinct and his own counsel. A president who accepted this invitation from Kim Jung Un in an instant. And that counsel, his own instinct will be driving this moment today, as you point out, George. The first meeting, extraordinary in so many ways, including the fact it will just be those two men, Kim Jong Un, Donald Trump, and the translators.
Trying to get a feel for each other, see if a peace can be forged. 65 years since the ceasefire that ended the fighting in the Korean War. Of course, there's been no peace treaty. I'm also joined by our chief global affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz. And Martha, the big question on the table, is North Korea willing to give up its nuclear weapons? What can President Trump offer Kim to convince him he doesn't need them?
Well, we know that Kim Jong Un has said he will talk about denuclearization. He will discuss that, or we wouldn't be here today. President Trump made that very clear. That has to be on the table. Most experts, most former officials will tell you he will never give up those weapons. But I think if you leave the conventional wisdom about that, maybe Kim does want to come into the modern world. Maybe he does want his economy to improve. What he does want is more meetings than just this one. Both President Trump and Kim want more meetings. They say this is a process. Kim, obviously, if he decides to denuclearize, it will take a while. But this is something we will not know the result of for a long time. But what he wants in exchange is security without weapons if it comes to that.
Process that could take months and years. World News anchor David Muir also here. We know, David, that nuclear weapons are what got Kim here today, and he's already achieved what his father, what his grandfather couldn't, sharing a stage with the American president.
No question, George, and the numbers when it comes to that nuclear arsenal just stunning. Under Kim Jong Un, they've launched more ballistic missiles than his father and grandfather combined. 4 of the 6 nuclear tests have happened under Kim Jong Un. That hydrogen explosion just a few months back, believed to be larger than Hiroshima. But George, as you point out, many observers say the first victory for Kim Jong Un is just appearing in moments here with the President of the United States, the leader of the free world.
And the gentleman about to come out right now. We expect to see Kim Jong Un. Both the President and Kim Jong Un are there. They will be walking from opposite sides as we see President Trump getting prepared to walk to center stage. And there it is. The first handshake between the United States president and North Korean dictator, Donald Trump, Kim Jung Un, 65 years in the making. We can't read exactly what President Trump was saying to Kim Jong Un there, but he is now facing the cameras. No smiles from either man, but a thank you from President Trump. And they will now go behind closed doors for that one-on-one meeting with translators. Some smiles now that they're in the corridor. The first greeting between the United States president and North Korean dictator. Guess they're getting started before they go behind closed doors, Jonathan Carl.
Unbelievable moment, George. I mean, just to look at those two individuals, those two leaders, two of the most unpredictable leaders in the world, standing together over most of the past year, George. The conversation back and forth was taunting, was personal insults, was talk of war. And there you see getting that. Now, I think what we've just seen.
Yeah, the cameras are getting together now to go inside, John. Yeah, that was tightly choreographed. The question is what will happen when they get behind those closed doors. We're going to see a minute of that. And David Muir, let me bring you in there as well. They both kept on their game faces before the cameras, and then when they got behind that pillar, you saw them both break into smiles.
Into smiles with the world watching. And I'm so curious, George, how much English Kim Jung Un actually understands. We know he was educated in Switzerland along with his brothers. We know he's a lover of Western culture, movies, James Bond, Jackie Chan, American basketball. But we do believe that the president and Kim Jong Un will be in this room alone with only their translators, and for at least the first meeting here, a good part of that first meeting. And what's unclear is how much they'll be actually speaking in English that Kim Jong Un will understand, and perhaps if they'll offer some English in return.
Martha Raddatz, up until the last several months, the American who probably knew Kim Jong Un best was Dennis Rodman, the former basketball player. Mike Pompeo, though, the Secretary of State, has met with him in recent months heading up to this meeting. We also believe, though don't know for sure, that President Trump has likely talked to him over the phone, but of course, this is the first face-to-face.
Exactly, and it's extraordinary. I think of the three of us and so many times in the last few months talking about a possibility of war and being on that border, that DMZ, myself a few months ago, and realizing that these are two nations that could go to war and the military preparing for that. And to see the hand on the shoulder that President Trump put on Kim Jong Un, it's quite extraordinary.
And the words that President Trump has used to describe Kim Jong Un, the ones that Kim Jong Un has used to describe the president, obviously a huge change in attitude, at least at the beginning of this meeting. We don't know exactly what's going to happen once they get behind those doors. But Martha, you just made the point. Especially after those first tests and those threats from Kim Jong Un, the military was poised for possible military action. No one was sure it wouldn't come.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things we haven't talked about much is that Kim Jong Un really stopped before the U.S. military did.
Cameras now inside the room for the president and Kim Jong Un. Let's listen in.
Mr. President, how do you feel on this rest
I feel really great. We're going to have a great discussion, and I think tremendous success. They'll be tremendously successful. And it's my honor, and we will have a terrific relationship, I have no doubt.
우리는 아주 굉장히 성공할 걸로 믿습니다. 그리고 아주 만나게 돼서 굉장히 영광스럽게 생각합니다. 아주 훌륭한 관계를 가지고 있고 아주 전혀 의심 없이 좋은 관계를 우리가 맺을 거라고 생각합니다.
여기까지 오는 길이 그리 쉬운 길은 아니에요.
Well, it was not easy to get here.
우리한테는 우리 발목을 잡는 그 과거가 있고 또 그릇된 분쟁과 관행들이 우리 때로는 우리 눈과 귀를 가리우기도 했는데 우리 모든 것을 이겨내고 이 자리까지 왔습니다.
The past worked as fetters on our limbs, and the old prejudices and practices worked as obstacles on our way forward, but we overcame all of them, and we are here today.
That's true. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And another handshake there for President Trump and Kim Jong Un. President Trump says, don't think leaders are going to say anything more right now.
All right, guys, let's go.
President thanking the press right there, says he expects a very good meeting, hoping for success. Kim Jong Un saying that they've overcome obstacles to get here, looking forward to what the day can bring. David, you made the point, Kim Jung Un, groomed in Switzerland for leadership, picked by his father to become his successor.
And
But such a mystery to most of the world.
We know so little about him. In fact, it was the president, George, as you'll recall, just a few weeks back, saying he was just 27 years old when he took over the regime, when his father died. The president saying, say what you want, but that's not easy, especially at that age, saying, I'm not giving him credit or not giving him credit. I'm just saying it's a very hard thing to do. A moment of respect from the president for that leader. But keep in mind, this is a brutal dictator. He killed his uncle, his trusted uncle, when he believed that the uncle began plotting a coup. It's widely believed that he was behind the assassination of his half-brother at Kuala Lumpur airport, that nerve agent administered by those two women. And of course, millions of North Koreans back home that have faced starvation, George, food shortages, and those rolling blackouts. The fact that he's sitting here beside the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, is historic for him and a victory already.
One of the questions, Martha, read is how much of that the president will bring up, how much he will confront Kim Jung Un in this meeting on issues beyond the nuclear program.
Well, there's certainly a call for him to do that, to address those human rights issues in a big way. But President Trump, of course, wants this to be a successful meeting. You heard him say, I think it will be tremendously successful. And it is my honor to meet Kim Jung Un. That certainly stood out in his remarks. They're off to a friendly start. So far, they've gone more than a minute, for sure. And President Trump said he would know within a minute whether he thought the meeting would be successful. I think it took about a minute and a half before he said he thought it would be tremendously successful. But let's go back to what we were saying a little bit before, George, and the military confrontation that we thought was so real. Our U.S. military was practicing all the time for what may come. If Kim Jong Un decided to do an atmospheric test, we probably would have had to respond in some way, or at least try to stop that in some way. But Kim Jong Un decided not to go forward with that because he already, if he doesn't now, could very quickly gain the ability to put a nuclear warhead on a missile.
Of course, if this meeting fails, that prospect of military action could come to the fore again. But for now, we've seen handshakes, we've seen smiles from both leaders, both looking confident, both hoping there will be success, meeting one-on-one now with their translators. Their wider delegations will follow. We're going to stay here all night long, all through the night, with breaking reports as it warrants. The first summit between the United States president and a North Korean dictator. For all of us at ABC News, back now to our regular programming.
This has been a special report from ABC News.